Donald Trump is back in the White House, and Europe is holding its breath. NATO leaders are scrambling, EU officials are bracing for impact, and every capital from Berlin to Brussels is wondering what the next 4 years will bring. But one European leader isn't worried. In fact, she might be the only one with a direct line to the new old president. Giorgia Meloni. Trump has never had much patience for European leaders. Merkel annoyed him, Macron patronised him, and Scholz barely registered. When Trump looks at Europe, he sees weakness. Welfare states, open borders, gender-neutral everything. But Meloni? She gets a warm reception, respect even. Because while most of Europe tries to manage Trump, Meloni does something very different. She speaks his language. Not just politically, but emotionally. She speaks of God, family and nation with the fervour of a true believer. She rails against woke ideology and the bureaucrats of Brussels. And while others try to corner Trump with facts, Meloni validates his worldview. That's the whisper. It's not that she flatters him, it's that she confirms what he already believes, but with a European accent. They're an unlikely duo. Trump is impulsive, theatrical, allergic to policy detail. Meloni is disciplined, strategic, a political obsessive who quotes Gramsci and studies power like it's chess. But what binds them is a shared grammar, nationalism, border control, disdain for global institutions, and a deep belief that traditional values need defending. When Trump rails against the globalists, Meloni nods along, just with better syntax and fewer capital letters. What makes her powerful now is not just that she understands Trump, it's that he trusts her. While other leaders trigger his insecurities or defiance, Meloni validates him. She doesn't challenge the Trump worldview, she channels it. And that makes her uniquely positioned to shape how his foreign policy plays out in Europe. She's already proven herself on that front. Even before Trump returned to office, she was building relationships with American conservatives. Her CPAC speech was a hit. Think tanks in Washington praised her as a reasonable nationalist. She became the darling of the post-liberal right, not as a European Orban, but as someone who could mainstream populism without setting fire to the house. And at home in Italy, she's played a careful game. She's been far more pragmatic than expected. She hasn't crashed the economy or picked fights with the EU, just for show. She supported Ukraine, maintained ties with Biden while he was still in office, and walked a tightrope between ideology and institutionalism. Now that Trump is back, that balancing act is paying off. She's become Europe's Trump translator, a go-between who can make the chaos make sense, or at least make it manageable. If Trump threatens to pull back from NATO, it's Meloni who can pick up the phone and talk him down. If Brussels panics about trade wars or tariff threats, she's the one who can offer a channel, a calming word, a little spin. That makes her incredibly powerful. Not because Italy is a superpower, it isn't, but because influence isn't always about size. Sometimes it's about access, about trust. And right now Giorgia Meloni has both, but there are risks. Hitching yourself to Trump is never without consequences. If his presidency spirals, as it did in the final months of his last term, being too close could backfire. And at home, Italian voters are watching. The cost of living is rising, regional tensions are bubbling, and culture wars can only distract for so long. Eventually results matter. But there's a reason most people handle Trump with tongs. The closer you get, the more likely you are to get burned. Just ask his former cabinet members, campaign chiefs, or foreign allies who once thought they had influence. Eventually Trump turns on everyone. Loyalty is expected, but rarely returned, and the moment someone else commands the spotlight or dares to contradict him, they become a target. That's not just political risk, it's reputational napalm. For Meloni, the danger is real. If she becomes too closely identified with Trump's agenda, she inherits his enemies and his volatility. Any future scandal, diplomatic blow-up, or policy U-turn could land on her desk by association. And if Trump suddenly shifts course on NATO, Ukraine, or trade with Europe, she may find herself either defending the indefensible or breaking publicly with a man who doesn't forgive dissent. Being the Trump whisperer works, until he stops listening. Still, Meloni has pulled off something rare. She's made herself indispensable to both Washington and Brussels, without fully belonging to either. She didn't sell out to the EU, and she didn't turn Italy into a Trump satellite. She's walking the line, and with Trump back in power, that line now runs straight through her. She's not trying to tame Trump, she's trying to steer him, nudge him, translate his instincts into strategy. And in a West that's once again being reshaped by his presence, that makes her not just relevant, but essential. In a strange twist of fate, Trump's return has made Meloni not just relevant, but indispensable. She's no longer just Italy's prime minister. She's become Europe's unofficial translator for a president many can't understand, and most can't control. Whether Europe likes it or not, any serious strategy to deal with Washington now runs through Rome. And for a country that has often felt peripheral in EU politics, that's a major shift. Italy suddenly matters more, because Meloni matters more. That's why a recent moment struck such a nerve in Rome. At the European Political Community Summit in Tirana, leaders including Macron, Starmer, and Zelensky held a joint call with President Trump to coordinate their response to Russia's refusal to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine. Meloni was notably absent from this high-level discussion, despite attending the summit. Italian media interpreted her exclusion as a deliberate snub, sparking backlash in Italy. The incident contradicted the new reality Italy believes in, that it isn't just part of the European core, it's essential to holding it together in the Trump era. And Giorgia Meloni is the reason why, because when the world needs to understand what Trump really means, or what he might do next, it's Meloni who can walk into the room, look around and say, here's how we manage this. And that's not just power, that's diplomacy with a populist accent.